No role plays, no conference calls, no BS. Chris and Lorenzo share 4 decades of combined experience to help you become a more effective leader. This is Hacking Your Leadership.
Welcome to Hacking Your Leadership. I'm Chris.
And I'm Lorenzo.
And Lorenzo, on this episode, I want to talk about a listener question that we had sent to us in our DMs and Instagram. This person reached out and said that, they had been a leader of a team for about 6 months. And they had been in leadership roles before, but this was a new team to them. And they were given feedback from their own leader that they weren't being assertive enough when it came to, holding people accountable, setting expectations. They were kind of being a little bit more passive when it came to that stuff, kind of letting things go as they wanted to go, as opposed to, kind of steering the ship a little bit more. They were given the feedback that they should do more of that. And so they did their best to try to do that. And it was met with a lot of resistance from their team. They found that some people on the team that they believed they had good relationships with for the first 6 months, all of a sudden started giving them the cold shoulder, or that they didn't seem like they were as approachable. They were just kind of maybe a little bit turned off by that leadership style than how it was going before. And this person was saying, they feel like they're stuck. They don't want to go back to the way that they were doing it before if they were doing it incorrectly, if their leader's giving them feedback they need to change. But they also know they can't continue on the same path because they're going to continue to, kill the relationships with the people who have to perform for them. And they're wondering what advice we had on this situation. I think it's a great question. I think a lot of leaders, when they're trying to find their voice as a leader and they're trying to find the way that is best for them to lead their team, when they're trying to find that, this is some of the issues they will encounter. I've encountered them myself.
Yeah, no, I think it is a great question. And it's one of those things, like, I think in this scenario, when you've got time with a team, so again, when you've been leading the team for a while and then you get some feedback around like being more assertive, I think it's really important to kind of peel back the layers first before doing anything different. Like what exactly is that feedback for? Typically, it means that maybe the outcomes are not, where they need to be. Maybe you're not meeting goals. Maybe the expectations around certain behaviors are not consistent, amongst your business. Like maybe the teams are not clear around, what the vision is. But there's typically something where, some part of the business or some part of people movement development is not happening. So I think that's super important to understand, because it can be like, hey, you need to be more assertive. You need to hold, like usually you hit like hold people accountable. Like that's the other part of that you will typically get. But like, what specifically is being looked at to define whether or not accountability is happening or that you need to do more assertiveness? And I think that's really important, because if you're going to go and talk to a team or individuals on a team to establish some more assertiveness and not have the resistance, I think you need to get to the core of the issue as to like what it is the thing that is causing there to be, a requirement for more follow-up and stuff like that. So I think that's like the first step that a leader really has to do. I think if you get the feedback around being more assertive and the first thing you go do is like get with the team and say, hey, look, we got to move faster here. Like, I'm going to set up some time with all of us to sit down and talk about outcomes and talk about clarity. Like, if you go in after you've already established a relationship with people and then quick change, like move fast in a way that you're approaching that's exactly what I would expect would happen, is that you're going to get some resistance. And not because people are trying to necessarily resist you, but they might not feel, they might be intimidated by this change. They might feel threatened a little bit. There might be some insecurity. They might be confused. Where's this coming from? What's this about? So I think you have to spend some time really considering how you're going to go have those conversations, and then make sure that you're highlighting what exactly is the outcome or the behavior or the observation that is kind of causing this to be feedback that you're getting as a leader.
Yeah, I couldn't have said that better myself on the second half of that. The first part, when it comes to whether or not this person's leader did this in the right way, it's not addressed in the question, and we have to assume that it was done that way. If it wasn't, then it's on this person to go push back on their own leader and say, hey, I need you to be more specific. Like, what are you looking for here? Because just to say to be more assertive in general, there's something else. There's something else they're actually looking for. It doesn't matter to a leader whether one of their people is assertive or not. It matters whether they're getting their job done. And I know some leaders who get their job done very well, and others who get their job done very well, and they have different levels of assertiveness in how they get things done. but yet they both get it done. Every person has to find their leadership style, like I said. So again, if this person is not getting that information from their own leader, they need to push back and say, let's talk about this further. I want to make sure I'm doing this the right way. But if we assume that that was done and that whatever needed to happen with this person was articulated correctly by their own leader, what it sounds like to me is that a person was in role for 6 months on this team, and when you are new to a team, typically you get a lot of grace from your own leadership to get to know the team and start integrating well. But if you were put in charge of a team, a lot of times, if it wasn't a new position, you were put in charge of a team to fix a problem that was happening. So maybe there was an issue with the outgoing leader that caused the performance not to be where it was. This person was brought in because they can make things happen and they can change things and make them happen for the better. And then you give that person a few months to kind of get integrated and hit the ground rolling and talk to their people and get to know them. And you need to make sure they have that time to create those relationships instead of just on day one, starting the screaming matches. So, but at a certain point in time, there does need to be some change happening. It can't be a year to get to know your team and to get involved. It's a couple of months, and then you have to start really getting into the mix when it comes to what needs to change and where the performance is lacking. And when it comes to that part of it, you said it spot on. It is, people are inherently resistive to change when they don't know where it's coming from. And yet they are incredibly resilient to change when they do know where it's coming from and they're bought into it. It's not the change in general that people don't like. It's that they want to make sure they're not doing a misstep themselves. And we've talked about this on a previous episode, the importance of being consistent to the point of predictability as a leader. If this person all of a sudden went from one leadership style to a completely different leadership style over the course of a very short period of time, that could lead their people to believe this person, I thought they were predictable, they're not predictable. And when a person believes that, it's not that they're resistive to it, it's that they don't know what to do next. And so they typically shut down a little bit. They go into kind of self-preservation mode, and that can be interpreted as that they're being resistant to this new assertiveness, when in actuality, they're just trying to get the lay of the land. They're trying to figure out, okay, who is this person? And so, yeah, it's incumbent upon this person who asked the question to make sure that their people know where this is coming from. And it's okay to say, hey, I was put in charge of this team to fix this and this and this and this problem that we're going on here. Let's talk about why those problems are happening and figure it out together. They shouldn't necessarily get rid of the leadership style that is comfortable to them. When the person telling them they need to be more assertive, what they're really saying is, you need to get the job done and get the results we're looking for. How I would do it is by being more assertive. So therefore, I'm going to tell you need to be more assertive. That doesn't necessarily mean that's the right way to do it. It just means that people are watching now and changes need to start happening.
Yeah, I like that part you were kind of talking through, because what I heard in that sometimes is like, it's not assertiveness, it's clarity.
Right.
And it's movement. Like hey, you got to be more clear on what you expect from people and from the team, and you have to be able to move something faster, and whatever that's an outcome, a result, a metric, whatever that might be. And I think that based upon again, if the question coming in is like, I've been told to be more assertive, so I have been, and then I've gotten resistance, then I can only read through that to say, then probably the approach to be more assertive did not go over well, right?
Of course.
Or not as well as you wanted to do. So my advice always is like, if you have, a good relationship with the team, if you've been there and been able to get things done. So let's just assume that that your impact as a leader is that your outcomes, like, you're doing well, you're doing good. Maybe you're not doing great. Maybe there's some opportunities here and there, but for the most part, you're doing a really good job. Then I think that, stepping into those conversations to be more assertive, I think you have to start with clarifying for the team and talking through. So like, hey, I need your time, attention, and your help. Because let me be clear about my role as the leader, what I'm responsible for, what I need to make sure we are doing collectively as a team, and let me be clear that we have opportunities here. So like, we have to find ways to move these outcomes or get this result that we're being asked for. and I need to make sure that I am much closer to that. But I want to start this off by having a conversation with all of you around what are the roadblocks, what are the things that are happening, what needs to change, what are your thoughts and ideas for us to move faster and to get this done, so that you're, to your point, you're bringing the people along, you're bringing the team along, you're answering their questions, you're being clear about what it is specifically that has to get better, or that has to change for the team to have the success that they need. And then after you kind of gather and have information to talk through, say, great, based upon that information, here's how I'm going to spend my time with us collectively as a team, or with you as individuals, to make sure that we can move faster. So again, like, I am being more assertive. I'm putting myself into maybe more conversations. I'm creating some elements and timelines of follow-up and that type of stuff. But I'm not going into the meeting and saying, hey, welcome to the meeting, everybody. Like, here's the deal. We're not doing this. This is not happening well. We don't have this outcome yet. So, like, I'm going to have to meet with each of you every single day this week until we get this better. That sounds and feels very different, but that could be thought of as, like, that's what assertiveness is. And it's not necessarily, what you're doing to be assertive. It's how you're being assertive that can really be the difference maker, and whether you're going to get resistance or not.
Have you ever been given this feedback before, that you were either not assertive enough or too assertive, from a leader? Have you ever been in a situation where it's like, where a leader is trying to tell you basically to do things the way they would do them, when maybe it's not necessarily the knee-jerk style that you would go towards?
1,000%. I wrote it in my book. Yes. Yeah, 100%. Yes. I mean, that was just the reality of it. Was like, I had a great relationship with the team, a lot of fun, was recognizing some of the movement that we had, but the reality was we were not successful. Like, on the big picture, we were not moving fast enough. We did not have the outcomes that we needed, and that was exactly what the feedback was that was given to me. Is like, you're basically not assertive enough, and you're not driving the team to deliver upon what they're capable of doing. And again, what I appreciated about the leader at the time was that she did not tell me how to do it. She just told me that I needed to do it. And then allowed me to create my own space and my own way to make it happen, where I could still be authentically who I was as a leader, but that I could also make sure that I had an element of accountability and assertiveness when it came to us meeting the expectations. And then the reality was that allowed me to be successful. And so I think all leaders go through this at some point. I think it happens really in two big ways, usually right when you become a leader and you're trying to figure out what that means, but then also when you've been a leader for a while and you've gotten really comfortable in your own work systems and your own way of approaching and doing things. And that comfort can lead to you having a little bit less of an edge and a little bit less of the movement that you need to have to make things happen faster.
Right. I'll add a third element to this, and this is regardless how long you've been a leader, if you inherit a brand new team. Because I'll tell you, where it's impacted me in my career is when I feel like I have found my voice as a leader, because it worked well on the team I was leading, and things were going smoothly, and the numbers were there, and the performance results were there, and that led to a move or a promotion to a different team, a larger team, to impact positively the results in the way that I had impacted them on the previous team. And I had to re-find my voice again as a leader, because the new team that I inherited didn't respond the same way as the team that I was leading before. And so you're right in those two things, when you're first trying to figure this out, and B, if you become complacent and things start to change. But yeah, I think when you're inheriting a new team, as this person did, 6 months ago, according to their question, it's possible that the way that they led their previous teams was very effective just the way it was, and it just isn't effective on the new team. And that will happen in the course of a leadership career, where you have to start learning or developing or getting better at certain elements of leadership or certain skills of leadership that you didn't actually have to have before, because the team that you happen to be leading didn't necessarily need it. One of the best leaders I ever worked for didn't know how to do my job. And that was okay. He didn't know how to do the job of any of the people reporting directly to him. And that was okay, because the people reporting to him all really, really had some, kind of internal accountability to get their job done correctly and to the highest level. And so that worked okay. If that same person was promoted and ran into struggles later on because they were promoted to leading a team of people where there were a lot of people on that team who didn't have that same level of commitment. And it was a lot more challenging for that person to hold them accountable when they didn't know how to do that person's job to begin with. There has to be some element of knowing how to do the jobs of the people reporting to you. If your job is to hold them accountable to doing that job, you need to be able to speak to it. You need to be able to know at least the high level of what they're supposed to be doing. And this person ran into problems doing that because they didn't know. Whereas, again, on the previous situation, they didn't need to know because the accountability was less about the processes involved in doing the job and more about the overall performance as a team, holding other people accountable. They were a leader of leaders. So again, yeah, as you progress through your leadership career, there will be things you'll have to summon within you that you may not have had to do before. And the longer you're in leadership roles and the more often that you switch teams and get promoted and move around in organizations and in industries, the more likely it will be that you will develop this muscle earlier. But there are plenty of people out there who make careers out of themselves leading the same team of people for a long time. And then it's kind of a little bit of an upheaval for them when they have to change something. And some of them struggle with it.
Absolutely. And with that, it brings us to this episode's 1 Minute Hack. But first, a few words from our sponsors.
For this episode's 1 Minute Hack, here's what I want you to do. If you've been given feedback by a leader that you need to be more anything or less anything, figure out what that is rooted in. What they're saying is they're looking for a specific result, whatever that result is, and that's not being delivered. So it's important you get clarity on that first. Once you have clarity on that, discard the previous sentence. You don't need to be more anything or less anything. You need to get that result done, whatever it is that is being looked for out of you and your team, and then you need to bring your team along for that ride. You need to work with them individually and as a team to let them know what the expectation is on you, why you were brought on to lead this team, or what the expectation is of the team as a whole, so that it's not just you regurgitating something from a boss to somebody else about what they need to do. In essence, you're showing your team that you're in this together with them. This is something that you are being held accountable to at the same time as them. And so this isn't about just dictating to them what they have to do. It's more about, hey, let's figure out how to get this result done together. You're much more likely to have people understand why there might be a change in your leadership style if they can root it in this, and they're less likely to give you resistance on whatever change it is versus just kind of assuming that they'll understand and that they'll make the changes necessary if you just become a wholly different person. Bring your team along for the ride. They need to know that they can trust you and that you're still a predictable leader.
Yeah, I think it's a great 1 minute hack. And I will just add like a little asterisk, because there's always the potential that maybe you are not assertive at all. Like I find that hard to believe, to be in a leadership role, to be there for 6 months, to it would be tough for me to believe that there's not an element of you being able to be assertive. But there are some times when the feedback of being more assertive is around how you approach conversations, the clarity of your expectations, the kind of the lack of like beating around the bushes. I want to clarify that as well, because I think that there might be a small piece of it where it could just be the language that you're using, and being more assertive could actually just be the feedback of like, actually, I don't want you to do anything different within your business per se. I actually just need you to be more clear when it comes to your expectations with your team, because while this team may understand you, they may trust you, and they may kind of see what you're doing and how you're getting there, that might not work for all teams and for all people, where you have to have more clarity. So there is that potential as well. I'll just put that out there. But I think that that's a very, very small percentages. I think what you shared in the 1 minute hack is spot on for 95% of people that may be getting that kind of feedback.
Right, completely. And when it comes to this listener, the fact that they were only in this role in this team for 6 months, that is likely the case. But you're right when it comes to those outliers. When I've typically seen that, it's when there are people who are in charge of the same team and they're doing the exact same role. They've not promoted up or promoted out or switched teams or done anything for many, many, many years. And we saw this a lot in retail during the late 90s and early 2000s, before online shopping became a thing, and margins were incredible and people were promoted because the numbers were always great. And a lot of people were promoted in spite of the fact that they didn't really have any leadership skills. They just happened to be in charge of a team that did well, and therefore they got promoted. Then all of a sudden you expect leadership out of these people to fix a problem, and they have no ability to do it. They have no assertiveness. They have no ability to hold people accountable. They're incredibly nice people, and they it's not like they're doing anything malicious or intentionally wrong, but they just don't have what it takes to solve problems in a way that an organization may grow to need those problems solved over time. And when it comes to that, that's when assertiveness comes into play. And if they can't be assertive, then sometimes they're in the wrong role. And they may have been in the right role to begin with, and because the role changed, now they're in the wrong role. Some people have the ability to evolve and change when it comes to that, and others just do not.
Absolutely. And with that, it brings us to the end of this episode. This is Hack Your Leadership. I'm Lorenzo.
And I'm Chris.
And we'll talk to you all next time.